Just like to summarize this discussion with two quick questions. In retrospect, does the notion of relationality have a place in your approach? And if so, in which context did you have encounter it for the first time? And in a second time, in your opinion, can the notion of relationality help us to better understand technology?
Or vice versa?
Yes. Yeah, relationality, certainly Heidegger's notion of relationality is central for my understanding of this, but a very different notion. I'm not concerned with the question of relationality in relationship to the truth of being. I could care less. I'm very suspicious of that sense. That's Heidegger's nostalgia. I prefer the mistake of being, or the errors of being, and with no insult intended for the house of being itself, but just to say much more interested in mutations, breakdowns, crashes and swerves, and the general adventure of the life of the mind and the body than preserving the cosmology of the house of being. That said, my term for relationality is drift. This drift is a powerful, for myself, just as a sense of felt adequacy about it, because it's everywhere. I mean, technology is in drift. I mean, think of like Twitter and Facebook. I would never have anticipated my early criticisms of such things, in which based on silly ideas like, do away with your privacy and things like this, the very concept of privacy would be chosen, or that Twitter would become like so emblematically important in popular political revolutions itself. I had no clue of this, but the technologies were drift technologies. Technologies enter into the human condition. They interpolate, they're taken up for many absolutely creative and unexpected reasons itself. So I think that technology is worth their merit that are interesting, begin to drift itself. They'll have unexpected, unanticipated uses, and possibilities for freedom and domination will be as replete within them as within anything else itself. The question of art today is the best artists of our day are drift artists. That is, whose art is not about seeking to represent what is happening in culture, representing technology, but actually is the technology. I mean, like multimedia artists, the interesting multimedia artists are those artists who have so deeply absorbed the creative possibilities of the language of imaging that their work, their artistic work, becomes an exhibition of the most volatile, serpentine possibilities of imaging technologies without any attempt to interpret what's happening. It's an experience that happens. They're like drift artists. So you have drift theorists and drift artists and drift technology. And it's all from this notion of genetic drift. It even has a scientific basis in this concept of genetic drift itself. So the 21st century is evolving rapidly moving in the direction of drift. That's what's so unnerving everyone. And it's breaking down all established systems of meaning. That's why Obama gets up and says we're still relevant, because even the notion of imperialism has begun to drift. I mean, when imperialism elects an emperor, a president, who speaks beautifully of universal human rights, and to as much as he can do, he seeks to instantiate, he seeks to fulfill his word. He restrains the American military from predatory acts of power. He allows Mubarak and their ally in Egypt to be put into the old folks' home, and now to potentially, possibly go on trial. The typical politics are already breaking down. And so this concept of drift, which is a beautiful opening to the 21st century. It might be like very similar politically to Heidegger's notion of we're withdrawing into that which withdraws. And the end of the journey, who knows where this journey will take. I view this 21st century as a very interesting century that is emerging.